Alright, the brakes. I am using band type brakes on my plane, and you're probably wondering where the heck are they. I've actually learned to deploy a cloaking type device with my brakes, and no, actually they're right here. Simple band type brakes. The brakes that I'm using are 4-inch brakes. The drum assembly that is currently bolted to my wheels is a 4-inch drum, and these are the bands that go with that drum. Unfortunately, you can't buy them together, I don't believe, or at least I didn't. I couldn't find a kit that had everything in one unit. So I bought these bands. This is a keeper that comes with the bands, and this is all you get in this lovely package, are just these two items. This is just a cable keeper. It's got a hole in it for the cable, and it's got a set screw to hold the cable in place, and this just goes through one end of the band. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So this is what I'm going to use. These are the brakes that I'm going to use on my airplane. So here's what I've come up with so far for my brake system. This main mast is a piece of streamlined tubing. It is 0.65 wall streamlined tubing. This is the tubing that I used on my spreader bars, a couple pieces of scrap from my spreader bars on the landing gear. And I'm also going to use this for the diagonal braces that go from the top of the center section cabanes down to the top motor mounts. What I had done, I had taken this and I put it on the mill, and I milled completely through it, a 3/8 diameter hole. This is a piece of stainless steel 3/8 heavy wall tubing. It's 0.065 wall as well. It's been tapped for 1/4-28 bolt, and I just fitted that through the streamlined tubing and welded it on this far edge. Now, before doing the welding, before I welded this tubing into place, I installed this washer. Again, this is a stainless steel washer. It's 3/8 diameter, or 3/8 hole, 3/8 washer for the 3/8 tubing. I welded this in place here. Now, the way that I did that, what I have here is another piece. This is that tube and washer assembly. Again, it's threaded for 1/4-28. This is for the other side of the brake. I had taken my my band, and I had put the tubing on, and I put the 1/4-28 bolt on. Now you could probably put a washer between here, but I don't see a need for it. It's just another little item that can get misplaced, and it adds just a minuscule amount of weight that I don't need. There's no way for this band to work its way up over the head of this bolt. These brakes are only going to be used for taxiing and positioning the plane on the ground, so it will not see a lot of use and definitely not a lot of abuse. So I think just a plain bolt is sufficient. So I slide the tubing in, tighten the bolt, and then I just lay it down and I drop a washer over top of it. Pretend that this washer is not welded on here. Just drop a washer down over top, let it rest right on the band itself, just like so, and then do a couple of tack welds just to hold it in place. Again, I don't think it's required to weld a continuous bead all the way around, because I don't think it's going to see that much wear and tear and stress. So what that does, when you have this bolted, so you have your tube bolted on one end, and you lay the washer down over top of the other side here, and you just let the washer lay right on the band, and you tack weld it. That gives you the right amount of room that you need between the two to allow this to move freely. So you can go ahead and you can crank this bolt down all the way, and this will still pivot the way it needs to pivot. Okay? Let me take this back apart here. Hold on a second. All right. So once this assembly is welded, the washer to the tube, I went ahead and fit the tube through this main mast, and I had it poke out this side just a little bit, just enough poke through so I can get a weld on it. Once I had it welded all the way around, I went ahead and ground this, or filed this back so that it would maintain the contour of the airfoil shape. The other thing that I had done on a milling machine was I had milled slots on one side of the main mast here for this piece to slip into. You can see on this side that it slips through and goes all the way across to the back side of the tubing here. And again, I had done that on a milling machine where I had just slid it. The space between here is needed for the band clearance, like that. And then this tube assembly is for it's like a cable guide, if you will. Now the cables that I'm using, I'm going to try to use these brake cables from Bicycle. I got these at our local Walmart. There's 4 cables in here, and 3 of which are long enough to be used for the Pietenpol brakes. And this tubing is 1/4 inch stainless steel tubing. This particular tubing is a very, very thin wall. It's like 0.014 or something like that. I had measured the ferrule on these brake cables, and I needed to drill out the 1/4 inch tubing so that ferrule can fit down in here. You could use whatever wall thickness tubing you want, but you're still going to have to drill it out big enough for the ferrule, the brake cable ferrule, to fit down into here. This again is just a piece of stainless steel, and with I gotta stop piling this stuff up so I can get to it faster. With the brake band in place, you can see that keeper obviously goes into here, and that the hole for the cable on the keeper lines up with the slot here in the band. So with this slid into place here, I just wanted to mark this piece that the tubing fits through. That needs to be in line with this slit, because the cable's going to come out of here and it needs to line up with this keeper that's going to be over on this side. This will actually be positioned like this. Is that right? I don't think it is. It's be positioned more like this. So you want this tubing here to be in line with this slit, and the best way to do that is just to fit it into place here on your mast and mark a line center with this slit in the band itself. Then I went ahead and I drilled it out for the tubing. I flared the ends of the tubing. I mainly flared the exit end because the cable is going to come out of here, and I didn't want the cable to be dragging on the edge of the tubing, so I just went ahead and flared it. You can see that the tubing is bent, and when I had this temporarily positioned on the plane, I just kind of guesstimated what kind of an angle that cable is going to come out here at, and I tweaked the tubing just a little bit just to make sure that that cable wasn't dragging on something more than I wanted it to. And then again, after I had that position the way that I wanted it, just a couple of small tack welds. Again, this is not going to see a lot of forces, so I think that a few tack welds is sufficient, or are sufficient. This was a very hard, not very hard, but a difficult piece to weld, because this piece here is a pretty heavy piece of stainless steel, and by the time you drill out this tubing for the cable ferrule, it's a very, very thin wall. And I ended up making this piece here, the tubing and the bracket, I ended up making like 5 of these total, because I kept blowing through the tubing with its thin wall when I was trying to weld it, but I finally got it relatively correct. So that's my explanation for the lousy welds. And it got to the point where if I got a couple of good ones, that was good enough, because I had burned through so many other ones I was losing my patience. So that's it. That's the pivot for the band, with its washer on the back side to prevent the band from dragging and rubbing against the main mast. It's threaded for the bolt. And if you put this together and lay the washer on the band, like I had mentioned, you're able, and if you put your tubing in through the band, put your bolt on the band, lay the washer on the band and tack weld it, that will give you the spacing that you need so that you can crank this bolt down tight, and this will still be free to do what it needs to do with not a lot of slop. The slit in the top for your support here for your cable feed through, and then the tubing itself for the cable. Now, because the tubing is bent, the brake cable can't make the bend, so the brake cable ferrule cannot make the bend. So when you put your cable into here, it's a very tight fit to begin with, but it won't make that bend, so the sleeve will go into here with the ferrule and stop at the bend, and then of course your cable will come on through into your keeper. Alright, and I think that's it. That's where I'm at so far. You've seen this piece. This is for the other brake. It's just the threaded tubing with the washer already welded on. When I get my main mast drilled, this will be put into that and welded. And this is the tubing assembly for the other side that's been fabricated and welded. And I'll have pictures of all this, of course, with a little bit more explanations and whatnot. So let me get to work on this other side and get some of this other brake stuff figured out, and then I'll come back.